Welcome to the Worcester School Committee. We're going to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and followed by the National Anthem. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Roll call.
Member Clancy? Vice Chair Johnson?
Here.
Member Kamara? Member Mailman?
Here.
Member McCullough?
Here.
Member O'Connor?
Here.
And Mayor Petty?
Here. So next time we have the consent agenda. We can do a roll call and approval.
Member Clancy? Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara? Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough? Member McCullough?
Yes, but Mr. Chair,
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I know it's in the initial filing of individual recognitions, and since it's going to be a letter that goes out, I did just want to acknowledge that we're going to be congratulating the Worcester Technical High School educator, Kim Eukstetter, on being awarded the 2022 Entrepreneurship Honorable Mention Award, and that's going to be done in a letter, so because that won't come up again, I just wanted to make sure we did note that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. That brings us to G. Request that the superintendent update the school committee on MOU with the Worcester Police Department for the school liaison officers and provide updates for the subsequent school committee meeting to include plans to work in MOU. Member Johnson? Or Superintendent?
Thank you. I think Superintendent Monterez has an update.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Monterez?
So to update through the chair to the committee and to the public, we have been working with our city police. We've met at least 3 times to go over this MOU. We're still finalizing it. We then took it to the safety task force that was put together by the mayor last school year. I believe it's the mayor and the city manager at the time, being led currently by our acting city manager. Shared that with them earlier this week, shared with them our guiding principles of how we're forming this MOU. And because a core value of the district moving forward is to include people in decisions that impact them, our next steps are going to be to ask for a small group of principals, pre-K through 12, who can just take a look at the draft MOU and give us feedback. We want to make sure that what we're putting in there in terms of what the district will be responsible for is something that is appropriate, that meets the goals of the MOU, which is very much through a restorative approach, very much about any kind of disciplinary incident is to be addressed through our school administrator first, and that law enforcement would come in as necessary as it relates to any kind of infraction related to the law. So we want to get feedback from our principals. And then we plan on refining and finalizing the MOU and bringing it to the committee. The goal it will be to bring it at the second September meeting. Worst case, it would be at the October, but we think we'll be able to get that done sooner than that. We will be meeting with our principals before school starts, so we'll be asking people, actually tomorrow, we're going to ask for those representatives. In the meantime, we know school opens. We're very excited to have our scholars on campus. So what we will have is the partnership that has continued with our city police through an SLO model where we will be able to call them as needed, but we will not, very much what we closed our schools with is what we'll be opening with and finalizing the MOU. So plan on seeing a draft of that. Earliest would be September, I think it's 16th is our committee meeting. Worst would be the October 1st, and that would be for you all to take a look at and give feedback.
Okay. Any questions? So we get an update. Fine, so we can file that. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Monarez. Okay. Member Mailman?
Through the chair, maybe to the chair, maybe you know, Mayor, the MOU, is there state language that is part of this MOU that we are following, or we get to entirely create our own MOU?
It could be either way, and I think we're creating our own MOU, and we started with the state MOU, then we've moved away. Now it's been edited a number of times. So.
Okay. And does the state have any say over our MOU?
I don't think so, not that I know of.
Okay, but it was a draft model that was put forward from some organizations in the state, correct?
No, we started with the state MOU when,
Yeah.
before Dr. Monarez started.
Yeah.
So then now it's, I think superintendent has created their own MOU. Is that right?
Yeah, well, do I respond
Yeah,
through the
go
chair?
ahead.
Okay, through the chair. So the state model that exists is for school resource officers. And
Yeah.
so the committee, the task force looked at that before I started, so sometime in the spring.
Yep.
And the challenge is because it's drafted with the lens for school resource officers, there's information in there that doesn't pertain to the model we're putting in place. So therefore, we're designing our own based off of, we took a look at some districts in the state. There's not many who have school liaison officers, but we did take a look at Wellesley in particular, and what they put in there for some sample language. Then we actually looked at what was the previous MOU that was in place many years ago, around 2015, I understand, and that helped with some guiding principles as well. But the restorative justice piece is newer to it, right? So we want to be sure that that is captured in there and runs through the spirit of the document, which is what came from the safety task force. They also want to see that. So it's this combination. But long answer to, we're creating our own.
Yeah, and that there is no state liaison policy.
And there is no state liaison
Thank
model.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to do public comments. Anybody have any, this is your time to speak. You have up to 2 minutes. This is your name, city of residence, and item number.
There we go. Hi, I'm Stacia Zogby. I'm a resident of Worcester. Mayor Petty, Superintendent Monarez, Dr. Friel, and members of the committee. I'm here today to support item GB2-234. This item was initially brought up by myself and the other student representatives in the spring, and it's important to me that the committee continues to support student voices and initiatives, which is why I'm here today. As mentioned in the spring, mesh and clear bags offer no extra safety to school buildings. If someone unfortunately wanted to bring a dangerous item into the building, they could easily cover it with the belongings in their bag. Additionally, these bags can get very expensive and they break easily, which can put on an extra burden to students and families to keep their place safe. Committee members, I urge that you vote to remove this policy from the student handbook. Just as students are able to express themselves in the clothes that they wear to school, they should be able to choose the bags that they bring to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I don't think anybody's online, is there? So we can look. Okay, as far as I can tell. Okay. We are on Superintendent's Report, Summary of the 2022 Summer Learning Programs. Madam Superintendent?
Well, thank you, through the chair. Mayor, do I say that each time? I'm sorry. Do I?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yes.
through the chair. We're very excited
I usually let it go, but it depends how it's going.
to be presenting the fabulous opportunities we offer to our scholars this summer. I really want to commend the team, raise your hand team back there, who were just instrumental in making sure, yes, let's give them a round of applause. We know you can't be seen, but you are to be commended. They just created great learning opportunities and spaces for our scholars to be safe during the summer, to socialize with each other, which we know is so important, and our children just need that. We all need that, but they especially need that after this last school year. And I had the opportunity to visit our summer programs, and I wanted to be there. So if I wanted to be there, they wanted to be there. As I've shared, when I think about where Worcester will go as a collective, we will be an educational model of excellence through a culture of belonging and a culture of continuous improvement, and our summer programs this summer are a great example of that and a great start. And so I'm going to have Dr. Sipple and Ms. Kelly come on up and share about the programs. Come on up. While they're coming, what you will see is that the summer programs were very much about a variety of enrichment opportunities for our children. At the end of this presentation, you're going to see great pictures of our scholars in action and the educators that work with them. We will, at the end, share with you next steps and what we've learned as a result of the work that we did this summer. And I want us to start thinking about summer as an extended school year, not, and so it's an extended school year for children to apply their learning in a very enriched, fun, engaging manner, so that we kind of almost, they don't realize that they're learning, right? But they are doing that. Also a space where it keeps them safe, where they can socialize, learn, and grow together. And so some of what you'll hear in our future steps are going to be around partnerships with our community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the team.
Dr. Sipple?
First time with the mic. Hi, everybody. So I'm here today to provide you an overview of a quick overview of our summer programming. I'm going to share our successes and our challenges and review the next steps to provide a more comprehensive program at a larger scale next summer. Dr. Manaras has already introduced our team, and they're more than happy to answer any questions at the end if you have any. So here are our objectives, which I'm sure you've already seen. We'll go to the elementary. Oh. Okay. So our elementary programs were housed at 4 quadrant sites and 3 school-based sites. The focus was both academics and social emotional. Students received small group tutoring in both math and ELA. We hired all classroom teachers, ESL teachers, and special education teachers for our programs so that all students would get what they need. Each classroom had about 2 or 3 adults, had at least 2, or sometimes 3 adults in the room supporting the students, so we could ensure there was small group instruction and one-to-one targeted instruction with those who needed it. This was one of the most important parts. Every student also had an enrichment block every single day, and this is why I think our attendance was good, and I think they kept coming back. There was art, there was music, physical education, and game time. These were also small group instruction. There was also small groups, and the focus was on SEL needs by connecting with peers and building relationships. The multilingual program at Woodland had a lot of community collaboration, and Julie Taka is also here. And if you have any questions, and their program ran like the ones at the 4 quadrants, and they're included in the pictures on our slides. Next slide. Okay, this is something we're really excited about. This was the first year we piloted summer camps. Students could register for a 1-week camp focused on robotics or art explorers. The students loved the camps, and we hired Worcester Public Schools high school students as interns, which was awesome. We also had a virtual tutoring program for parents who wanted this children to stay at home, and this was done virtually. It was offered as a 4-to-1 ratio. Every week there were 3 45-minute sessions, and the focus was basically on phonics and teacher-recommended targeted areas. And that's pretty much the overview of the elementary programs.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kelly. Through the chair, continuing with the secondary. So we did have in keeping with the tradition that we've had over the last several years, secondary summer school at 10 sites for both high school and middle school students. That included acceleration and enrichment for students looking for something extra, and also, especially in our high schools, the opportunity for students to recover credit that they needed to recover from this past year. We had 465 high school students participate, 201 middle school students, and there was English learner and special education support provided at these 3-week programs across the 10 sites. We also concurrently had an exciting, and before I go further, if I want to just acknowledge, we had many excellent educators across all 10 sites. Mike Thibodeau and Christine Lloyd. Mike Thibodeau is an assistant principal at Forest Grove. Christine Lloyd is our science curriculum liaison. They were our point people in helping to organize and facilitate the summer and did an amazing job. And Mike's here tonight. And I'm pretty sure Christine had a little bit of trouble getting here tonight, but she's watching, and we want to thank both of them. Generation Teach is an exciting new partnership that we had this summer. Generation Teach is they operate nationally, and their model is to recruit high school seniors and undergraduates who are interested in teaching. And they are very successful in recruiting folks who reflect the communities in which they serve. And they are mentored in turn by educators from within the district. And this particular program was at North High School. It ran for 5 weeks. And they had hands-on learning, as you can see, math, reading, and law and engineering, along with enrichment activities in the afternoon. And there were 150 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who were a part of it. Such great energy. When Dr. Menares and I had a chance to visit, I went to a couple of times, but when I visited with Dr. Menares at the very beginning of the day, just the energy they had to greet the students as they were coming off the buses in the morning, it was just, you wanted to be there, and the kids definitely wanted to be there, and they were there for a full day, whereas our summer school programs typically run in the mornings. They were there from, I believe it was 8:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Ivy Sanchez from Generation Teach is on vacation, but she's joined by Zoom, and so if we have questions about this program, she'll be available to answer questions later. But we were delighted to have this partnership with Generation Teach, and it's definitely something that we're interested in pursuing again next summer. We also received funding, actually Worcester State received funding from DESE to put on early college summer academies, and we had 3 different summer academies that ran. One was for Claremont students to engage rising 9th graders at Claremont. So, 8th graders from this past year, rising 9th graders who did a 2-week program on the campus of Worcester State, taught mostly by Claremont faculty. The principal was there every day also. She's joined us by Zoom tonight. But then they had workshops that were taught by Worcester State and QCC faculty in crime scene investigations, social urban studies, and I'm forgetting another field, along with science and exposure to the facilities there, ability to use the wellness facilities and the library at Worcester State. Tremendous excitement from the students to be on a college campus for those 2 weeks. And in the case of Claremont, those students also spent the night in the dorm, one night. This was a part of piloting some practices and some opportunities for Claremont students in particular that we're hoping to replicate in the future on a larger scale. And then we also had 2 one-week sessions for students from across all of our other, who are going to our other high schools, in 2 one-week sessions that were offered back-to-back. More than 100 students in the first week, 80 students the second week. And we actually had many students who would have loved to have participated, but we didn't have capacity for that first week. Meg Brunel and Liz Ward are both here tonight. Sandy Donald, too, along with Mary Jo Marion from Worcester State. Her team with the Latino Education Institute was instrumental in facilitating a lot of these opportunities for our students, and it was wonderful. And Dr. Benares could attest to that also. We had a chance to visit that program in July. And then Mrs. Kelly mentioned the program at Woodland. There were also 2 other multilingual accelerated summer academies, one on the campus at QCC and one at Forest Grove. This is for our secondary students. Very exciting program as well that Julie Taka and Carmen and their team helped to facilitate with 120 students participating in those 2 programs combined. And then as we do every year, there are a number of students across the district who participate in extended school year as a part of their individualized education plan. And we had those programs offered at North, at Roosevelt, and at Nelson Place.
Great. Okay. I want to reiterate, it's Jess and Mary's job was to oversee the programs. They were at the programs every single day. They were solving, we didn't have many, but transportation issues, just trying to figure out how to get, what bus kids goes and everything. So they were crucial in the success of our program. That being said, I think we're ready to go bigger. We need to go bigger to reach more students. We especially want to expand our summer camps. It's my hope to deepen our community relationships, to be able to tap into their resources, to help design fun, multi-interest activities to meet the extracurricular needs of all of our scholars. So some of the things we have to consider, we have to, a budget for sustainability. We need to deepen our partnerships with community-based organizations. We need to start planning this in January. I think January is going to be as busy as August is for us. But we need to plan earlier and recruitment and consider Generation Teach as a model. We need to explore intentional connections to work-based and service learning. And we need to expand our summer camp opportunities in sports, arts, robotics, and STEM. And that's it.
Dr. Monteris?
Yeah, so if I can just close up and then we can offer any questions. Again, I want to commend the team. As you can see, this is many different offerings for our youth, and it took multiple people to pull this together, right? We also know that in addition to everything we offered as Worcester Public Schools, some in collaboration with our higher ed, there was still a lot of community organizations that were also offering programs for our youth. And so we need to find a way to bridge those services. So next year, we want to have much more of the extended school year happening with deeper coordination with the district, as well as extended school day, because again, we have partners out there that want to partner with us. Looking at who does that, because right now, as you can see, there's lots of different people that kind of have their hand in the pot to make it happen for our scholars. Really would like to make it more sustainable and systemic, with one person being the point person to make extended school day and extended school year happen for our youth, keeping them safe, giving them a space to socialize, practice the skills they're learning in class, and continue to grow. It's a great opportunity in many different ways, and Worcester has much to offer, so figuring out how we're going to get all this together, we'll be bringing a plan forward to the committee in the future. Again, thank you, and we welcome any questions.
Ms. McCullough?
Thank you, and through the chair, I just wanted to say thank you to the administration for putting this together, and for all the educators who are here tonight and those who aren't here that participated in the programs. The one thing I will say, I heard a lot of excitement from both families that participated in the programs this past summer, or this current summer, it's not over yet, right? And the educators who were a part of things. And what I really like about getting this presentation back is knowing, what our key objectives are moving forward. So it's not only, we had summer programs, but what worked, maybe what didn't work, and how to grow from there. And I look forward to what we're continuing to do with them as we move forward, and the planning starting a little bit earlier. And as Dr. Monarez is mentioning, looking at the extended day, not just the extended school year model, but I just, it makes me look at these programs and wish that I could have gone into them as well. So I appreciate all the work that went into that this summer, and really for the report too, to know where we're at. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Mailman?
Thanks for the presentation and all the work. Generation Teach, this is our first year with that program, and are there other districts that have had much more experience, and what does the data show?
Yes, and I should acknowledge Yvonne Perez, our Chief Diversity Officer, had a very large role over the months leading up to the summer in being a point of contact for Generation Teach. I am aware that, and Ivelisse Sanchez, as I mentioned, is on the panel tonight. I know that they've had past years' experience in Boston and Springfield here in Massachusetts, but also in other urban districts across the country. I know Denver for sure, along with several other places that are not on the top of my tongue. But this is our first summer working with them.
Okay. And do you know how, or through the chair, could I ask Ms. Sanchez, I guess?
Yes.
How long, what is the history of Generation Teach? How long has it been in existence?
Ms. Sanchez?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I don't know if it's customary to turn on my camera, but it's totally fine. So Generation Teach was founded in 2014 in Denver, Colorado, where we launched. And then in 2017 is when we came to Massachusetts and opened, in 2015, we came to Massachusetts and opened in Boston. In 2017, we opened in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and then also in Providence, Rhode Island. So we partnered with Providence Public Schools as well. And then this year was our first site in Worcester, as Tim mentioned, Dr. Sippel mentioned, and we also have a site in Cumberland, Rhode Island as well. So we are in 3 states across the U.S.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All set. Member O'Connell-Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do just, as much as I know it can get tiresome hearing people say thank you, I know that this was a tough summer for educators, and so I do just want to acknowledge not only those who sort of put programs together at the end of what popularly was known as the most exhausting year in education from nearly every educator that I've ever spoken to about this, but also those who actually just went back into the classrooms. Our kids needed it, and I appreciate those who stepped up. I did just want to ask, let me actually just put a marker down that I do not expect an answer to this tonight. At some point, I would be interested in learning where we are in terms of the 20% ESSER set aside for accelerated learning, whatever we're calling it, learning loss. I knew it was something I always put in quotation marks. I don't expect to know that now, but I know that there's been sort of this ongoing, are we there, are we going to be there, when are we going to be there? I would be interested in that in terms of the ESSER 3 grant. And I do want to echo I did some quick math. It looks like we reached something like 11% of our population. And so obviously there's a sort of a reach question here too, as much as we know that our students are being served by many, many organizations. In terms of even just from a very basic childcare perspective, the actual needs of our families in terms of where their kids are during the working hours of the day, our families have needs that extend far beyond what we've been able to offer. So I'm encouraged by the next steps. I agree with you in terms of the timeline. I'm always frustrated when we're sending things out in, say, May and June, because I know from a parental perspective, you already have had to make your decisions by then. So I'm really glad that we're doing that and looking forward to further updates. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? So I just wanted the team, thank you. Great job this summer. And so we'll start in January next year and plan for even better. So, okay. Thank you, everyone. So the motion is accepted in the file. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. The next item up is the report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Operations met on Monday, April 15th. Ms. Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Finance and Operation, as my colleagues are aware, have been meeting monthly to make sure that we are, among other things, keeping our eye on the ball in terms of transportation moving in-house. And this is the last report that I will give before we fully launch for the school year. So we did have an update from Mr. Hennessy and from Mr. Allen at the meeting in terms of where we're at, both in terms of driver recruitment and in terms of the buses themselves. As my colleagues are aware, the excitement around those brand new buses made some news yesterday. But that is an ongoing process, right? So we don't want anyone to think that it's going to be all brand new buses for the first day of school. They're going to be rolling in over the course of the fall. In terms of recruitment, we do still have a gap, but the good news is that there is ongoing drivers in training, and that has continued to be sustained over the course of the year. The numbers are in the minutes. I'm not going to read all of them, but I do want to note that there has been this continued process of people coming in, of getting some of their training, of continuing to work forward on their training ongoingly. And the three things that I think are important for families to know as we sort of move into the back to school is, first of all, that the model that the district is running in terms of transportation, as Dr. Manera mentioned at our last meeting, is effectively that of the spring. So that is that people are going to have transportation, and that there will be then changes over the course of the school year as there are additional drivers brought on. The two other things that I wanted to mention is, and this was something that was discussed a bit at the meeting, is that families should expect that assignments for their students will go up in the student information system next week, and they can look for that. And then also the time to download the MyStop app, if you haven't already done it, is now. Don't leave that to the last minute because you do want to set it up. We did have some questions in terms of who could drive buses under what conditions, and how double routes are going to be handled, both in terms of the buses but also in terms of the schools, and making sure that we have the staffing. I am going to recommend, the motion coming out of the subcommittee, Mr. Chair, is actually to file this item, because as some of my colleagues will recall, this motion was originally filed by Mr. Foley regarding outsourced transportation. My intent then is to, for our September 1st meeting, file a new item that's continuing to then track what we're doing as a district. I don't intend in any way for us to back off in terms of keeping our eye on this, but I do think it's time for a new item that actually is fulfilling, where we're fulfilling the intent in terms of the report. The second item that we took up was a quarterly building report, and I do want to recommend to my colleagues that they read the backup, because we not only had an update in terms of what we know to be an issue across the district and honestly across the country in terms of vacancies of staff and people having to work extended hours and so forth in order to take care of that. But also, not surprisingly, we're continuing to see issues with supply lines in terms of some of the work that's going on in the buildings. Do note that the water sampling has taken place, and there'll be information going up shortly There are also the quarterly PCB inspections are scheduled for the 2 high schools that happens. Later this evening, we'll be considering a $150,000 grant for water bottle fillers. So that was not taken at the meeting, but I know that people are really interested in those, so I want to mention it. We do have 5 boilers that are being replaced. They're in different stages, as you can see in the minutes. The Worcester Arts Magnet Roof project is expected to be completed before the end of school, before the end of the summer, before the start of school. But the ADA aspect of that, which you'll remember, Mr. Chair, the city put forward money for, will actually happen next summer. We do have the bleacher repair in Burncoat High School happening. We had a back and forth about that during the meeting regarding motorized nature of bleachers being necessary. The gym floor at Elm Park Community School is actually in the demolition stage, and bleachers will be installed during the second shift. And you can see the rest of the list here. My colleagues also asked about the freight elevator at Vernon School, which has some significant issues, and the cafeteria ceiling at Grafton Street is supposed to be completed before the beginning of school. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, Mr. Chair, so 2 things. In terms of the HVAC questions, the intention is for most schools to get some level of Honeywell improvements. There is, what has been happening over the course of the summer has actually been the planning, and then the work is going to be moving forward from there. Right now, because that's ESSER funding and it's a capital improvement, it has to be approved by the department. And the only other thing I wanted to suggest, Mr. Chair, is if we could ask Mr. Allen, as my colleagues are aware, the Transportation Department had an open house yesterday, and I wondered if you would give Mr. Allen a chance to just briefly give us an update as to what happened there.
Mr. Allen?
Thank you, through the chair. So yesterday we thought was very successful with the open house that we had. Just in terms of numbers, obviously these have to pan out to actual employment, but we had 5 fully licensed school bus drivers apply, 2 with CDL licenses that will still need their school bus license training, which is classroom time for them, and 40 people that signed up for training. So with that will, if they were all to be successful and complete the program, will put us at our full budget amount, not even our root amount, will give us our full complement of spares. So we will now, if from the conversation Monday at standing committee, between the people that we have in training, one less is in training because they actually get their license this week, but we will have more people in training than we actually have full-size drivers. So we're heading in the right direction. We just got to get them through the training program, which is intensive. Will take a couple months to complete for all of them. But again, we're increasing our driver workforce, not decreasing.
How long does it take to get a CDL license? Someone comes in through on a training program.
So in order to, so there's 2 components, CDL license and then the school bus license.
Yeah.
Total amount of time is 60 hours combined of behind the wheel and classroom time.
Yeah.
We have 5 trainers. It's really a matter of getting them the behind the wheel time is the most difficult for us.
So it could be 2 weeks if everything went smoothly.
No, probably 2 months if
2
everything
months?
went smoothly, because we're trying to get them all, keeping them all engaged at the same time. So we've got to space out there behind the wheel time. The classroom time is very easy to accomplish. It's the behind the wheel time training.
Okay. Okay, so we can accept the finance report. Those in favor? Opposed? So ordered. Okay. We have approved the grants and some other finance items on 2-216. We can take it on a roll call. Roll call.
Member Clancy? Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara? Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Next item is 2-217, to accept the Career Technical Initiative Grant administered by the Commonwealth Corporation on behalf of the Workforce Skills Cabinet in the amount of $270,000. We can accept that. Roll call.
Member Clancy? Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Tamara? Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And roll call vote?
Yes.
And Mayor Pettit?
Yes, to accept the early college full school and expansion year 2 Fund Code 175 grant from the Massachusetts. What, can I finish it?
Yes, I just had my hand up for when you finished. I figured you'd look up when you
To
were done.
accept the early college full school and expansion year 2 Fund Code 175 grant from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education administered by the Office of Early College in the amount of $500,000. Ms. Novick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will certainly accept the motion here to accept the grant, but I did want to note, I know I share, I think, probably my colleagues' interest in the work that's going on at Claremont. We haven't really had any kind of a report at that, and I would suggest that that probably belongs in teaching, learning, and student support. So if I could ask that we vote acceptance of the grant, but then send the early college program at Claremont to TLSS for further discussion.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll accept the grant. Roll call.
Can I also ask a question?
Ms. Mailman.
Maybe it doesn't matter until it goes to committee, but it's interesting to me that it's an early college. So I guess the goal here is an early college through the chair. And there's a lot in here and an awesome partnership with Bristol Myers for career tech stuff. But I guess I wonder if we're trying to be all things to all people with an early college grant. And I also wonder, I know this is to one school, this is to Claremont, but are we concerned at all about what it takes away from the other early college programs that we have? And perhaps all of this, my questions here are really for subcommittee, I'm not sure. Mayor.
Okay, so send that to committee?
So the answer is yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we first will take a vote on a roll call on the grant. Roll call.
Member Clancy? Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Tamara? Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
And roll call vote?
Yes.
And Mayor Pettit?
Yes, I guess we'll send that to teaching and learning. All those in favor? Opposed? So ordered. Okay. We are on 2-219 to accept the supporting students' social emotional learning, behavioral and mental health and wellness through multi-tiered systems of support. Fund Code 613, grant from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Office of Student and Family Support College, amount of $85,000. Ms. Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really just was interested through the chair to administration, if we could have a little bit more information. I see that it says that the program is bringing community mental health providers into schools to work with our students and assigning WPS staff to see students at their after-school programs. I just wondered if there was a little bit more information we could have about what's being done with the funding. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. We're going to have Dr. Morris speak to that, please.
Dr. Morse, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
Through the chair. This grant offers the Worcester Public Schools an opportunity to provide after-school counseling to our students for the 2022-23 school year. This is the beginning of a very exciting new component to our new wellness and support strategy that we plan to build up and build out throughout the school year.
All set? So this is after school, right?
Yes,
For the mental.
after school.
Has Dr. Castile been in the Worcester Public Schools? Are we working with the Public Health Department? I think we ended the school year asking about Dr. Castile evaluating some of our students. Have we moved on that anywhere? Or?
So it's my understanding, if I'm accurate, Dr. Castillo's work would be in the public health, not necessarily it would be more the
It's a different
physical
program,
health.
yeah.
Yes, I believe so. And so that work is more, especially through the COVID work or the COVID supports. This is specific to some more therapeutic supports and counseling.
Yeah, I was just, while you were here, I figured I'd get the answer. But because the last time we were very concerned with the mental health of the kids from the COVID experience. And we were very concerned that the information we were going to get was accurate. And so that's why we asked Dr. Castillo to go in and take a look, if I remember right.
So that's a little new to me, but if through the chair, to the chair, because it's to the chair, We are pulling together a very large task force to design a wellness comprehensive plan, and so including in that will be the engagement with public health and all those different partners. We just need lots of people at the table because it's a complex need.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do it on a roll call? So, roll call.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara, Member Manley,
Yes, is this going to a committee as well?
No.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. Okay, to accept the skills grant fiscal year 23, round 1, to North High School in the amount of $237, $237.21. Approve on the roll call?
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara, Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. We can take the next 4 or 5 items together collectively unless people have questions. They're all finance items, but. Okay. The first one is that,
I have questions.
okay, we'll do,
Member Novick has some questions.
Okay.
We might have to take them individually.
okay, we'll do 2-221, accept the skills capital grant fiscal year 23, round 1, Worcester Technical High School in the amount of $311,000. Roll call.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara. Was that a yes? Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. To accept the capital grant fiscal 23, round 1, Innovation Pathways Program in the amount of $75,000. Roll call.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara.
Yes.
Yes.
Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. To accept the Laura Bush Foundation of America's Libraries grant in the amount of $5,000. Ms. Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, congratulations to Belmont for writing a sizable grant like this. Mostly, I just actually wanted to put a marker down because I think that I actually know the answer. I believe that Belmont Elementary doesn't actually have a library, like a school library. And I did wonder, I guess, a little bit about how we were handling that. I know that I believe, Ms. McCullough, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that there's an elementary library item that's actually in TLSS at this point.
That's
yeah,
correct.
Okay, so mostly I just wanted to flag that again in terms of how we're managing that as a resource. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Roll call.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara,
Yes.
Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. To accept the Unum Equitable Pathways grant in the amount of $5,000.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara,
Yes.
Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. To accept the SWIG School Water Improvement Grant, the amount of, for the Mass Clean Water Trust, the amount of $150,000.
Member Clancy, Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Member Kamara,
Yes.
Member Manley,
Yes.
Member McCullough,
Yes.
Member O'Connor,
Yes.
and Mayor May.
Yes. Response to administration requests the update of the community of Worcester Public Schools and COVID. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you. Through the chair, so we have, just like last committee meeting, we only have data on staff at this time. This represents since the last committee meeting, so that's, I think, over 3 weeks or a little bit longer. We have 14 positive cases that we actually know about. There, again, could be more, but it's whatever gets reported to us. And then I did want to update the committee as well as the public on where we are in terms of COVID and the opening of schools, because we know that schools will open before we have our next committee meeting. So we attended a virtual meeting with the commission, with Commissioner Riley, with DESE, and he shared that there were no changes in terms of guidance coming from the state compared to what happened at the end of the school year. So whatever we close the school year with, that guidance stays the same. So what does that mean for Worcester Public Schools? We will continue to have medical waiting rooms in each of our schools, and that is being requested of the state. We will staff our rooms with either CNAs or our school nurses. We already have that in place. The state is no longer providing the supplies of PPE or gloves or masks, but we are taking care of that, and we have purchased that, and we'll be distributing that to our schools so that these medical waiting rooms have those supplies. The state is also no longer offering testing kits, but we will be purchasing those and have those available for any student or staff who is in need of those or would like those. We're using our ESSER funds to do that. And the, the test and stay has been lifted by the state. And so we are going to, if a student is referred to the medical waiting room, then they have the option to test there or they have the option to go home. At this time, I am not recommending, and the team is not recommending, any kind of mandatory masking for the start of the school year. We will continue with our existing mitigation strategies, including the air filtration system, recommending the constant hand washing. I think we've all gotten in the habit of doing that. It does appear that, at this point, things have kind of settled when it comes to COVID, and we want to think about it as an endemic rather than a pandemic. We have turned over leadership around that to our school nurse, our head nurse, Dr. McGovern. Yes, I got her name. Dr. McGovern, because she's the one who's in direct contact with our medical. If anything changes, we will definitely bring that back to the committee. And there may be some wonderings about monkeypox out there, because we have one more thing to be thinking about. So what the state did share is that they are going to be providing guidance that we will share with our school nurses. Dr. McGovern is aware of that, just so that our nurses are aware of what potential symptoms are from monkeypox, so they can screen for that. That's the guidance that we have at this time. We do think, it appears that we'll be able to open our schools and be able to focus on teaching and learning and keeping our children happy and safe and keep it in that realm. I do recommend, though, that I continue to report to you where we are with COVID until we get close. We've got people on campus for a while, and we monitor those numbers. One more change that the state has made is they are no longer requiring us to report numbers to them. In the past, they did. They will not be posting those as far as we are aware, unless that changes, but as of now, we will do our best to keep track of that. But keep in mind, if we're sending, or because we're sending students home to do the testing, we may or may not get all that data, right? So what we get will be just a snapshot of where things are at. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you for the update. And, sorry, Ms. Novak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm understanding correctly, we effectively are not going to know who has COVID then through the chair.
Madam Superintendent?
We are, with the students, we're sending them home with the testing kit, and we are asking the families to report it to us. It's still up to the family to report it to us.
Thank you. So are we effectively operating under any policy that says that if you are COVID positive, you need to not be in school through the chair?
I want to make sure I answer this. I want to make sure I answer this correctly. Mr. Allen, can you clarify? I don't want to answer incorrectly. My brain is still a little bit in California when it comes to COVID. So.
Understood.
Mr. Allen?
So through the chair, yes, they would still isolate for the minimum of 5 days and then would revert to the masking policy going forward. I'm just aware of the new DPH guidelines, which I think is tracking with the CDC guidelines on the masking after the fifth day. So that would still be in effect for our students and staff.
Thank you. And then is there any way for a parent or a child to know that they have been exposed through the chair?
Through the chair, no, there is no longer any contact tracing.
Okay, so, wow. And that would be true both for staff as well as for students. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. I don't know that I actually even have any questions about that. I'm just kind of appalled. And then I guess the only other question I have is, are we making any further efforts as a district in our coordination with DPH and others in terms of increasing the number of students that we have that are vaccinated? Through the chair.
Dr. Morris?
Wait, there we go. Okay. So I'm aware that we coordinated, I don't know if it's through the Department of Public Health, I actually do think it may have been with our, and our Food Services Department to offer vaccinations in that manner when we were offering food, and we did that throughout the city. I recall that. That's relatively recent that happened. And we will continue to coordinate with them to advertise the opportunities for vaccinations, and go that route. So it's not that we're going to stay silent on it. We'll work on that. We also, so there is a sentiment that if you've been vaccinated, if you were going to vaccinate, you would be vaccinated. What we are doing, this is something that's really important. We want to be sure that our families are clear that when we talk about immunizations to start school, that is not the same as vaccination for the COVID. That's been a little confusing. So we talked about that with our local health, and we're going to make sure that that's clear to our families. So we can definitely continue to advocate for the vaccinations so that our families can ask questions and feel comfortable about vaccinating their children, especially as time's gone on. We can definitely look into that.
Okay, I just would say then, I disagree with the idea that if you were going to vaccinate, you have. Looking at the national rates in terms of, what is it, the youngest children, I believe, nationally have an 11% vaccination rate. That's simply lack of good information. That's not actually unwillingness. So it has been demonstrated that one of the most trusted sources of information is actually school nurses, and I would encourage us to use that. I just will comment as a parent, I am deeply troubled that we won't know if our kids have been exposed. I don't think that's good enough. I think that we should be doing something other than that. I'm fairly certain that my junior is going to be going back to school with a mask, and I think that that's probably wise. Thank you.
Point taken. Member Novick.
Okay. Member Kamara?
Thank you to the chair. I do want to, from what I've heard with the administration, I do want to commend the fact that, from what I learned, that Dr. McGovern is going to be overseeing the efforts. I think that's incredible. I do also want to say that based on this conversation here, that means that we wouldn't have to change our COVID policy that we put in place, I think, earlier this year. So it stays the same, so we wouldn't have to update anything, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I do want to also share the same sentiment. If there's a way we can figure out how to, I don't want to say students know about the data of students who are COVID positive as they're coming into the schools. I think that would be something that we can all look at and put our heads towards, since we're not changing our COVID policy at the school committee. But I think with the efforts, leading that with Dr. McGovern, I think that's a great effort. Thank you.
I'm sure we'll be having deeper discussions as time goes on, especially September, October, but yeah. Okay, thank you. And we're going to provide an update for the next meeting. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Consider an update in the Municipal Broadband Committee. Ms. Novick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Broadband Committee's most recent meeting was actually a presentation from Mr. Matthews of the Research Bureau on the report. So really, rather than my discussing it further, I appended the report to the item for the information of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next item is request that the administration provide an update on the student staff Chromebooks for the 2022-23 school year. You want to just hold that until Member Clancy comes?
I'm sorry. I have a hand up.
Member McCullough first.
I had my hand up before for the other, but you didn't see me, the broadband.
What was that? I missed that.
I had my hand up for the broadband because I had a question, but you didn't see me.
On the broadband? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Member Kamara?
Right. Well, my question is in regards to, because to the chair, thank you. I'm aware that school committee members get to sit on the broadband subcommittee, which I am aware now that tax has been, is now based on the mayor, before I think was the city manager. And I would like to understand, like, what is the process in terms of like rotation for school committee members for other school committee members to be able to serve on that subcommittee?
Usually, once we do a subcommittee, usually the member. Right now, we have one member of the school committee and one member of the city council in that committee, and usually they stay the chair of those committees. And
so, there's no time limits?
Usually, there's not. No.
Okay.
But there'll be other subcommittees that people can volunteer for.
Okay, because I think I was under the impression that they have like new members of that committee, including the person that is leading that committee right now.
Well, usually we just started the subcommittee probably, I think it was last year sometime,
right.
Late last year. So unless there's a change in the elections, and usually the chairs, I think it's the chair of the finance committee who does it, and it's the chair of the sustainability on the city council side, and those are the two people that have been on it.
Right, but so to my point, and I guess where I'm going at with this is that I think that committee was organized like 2 or 3 years ago. So that means that the people that are still in that committee are still serving 2 or 3 years.
I'm not sure it was 2 or 3. We started with, because we didn't have Chromebooks, so I put a committee together, which was sort of a separate committee. Then we had the broadband, which was, I asked for the broadband committee, and me and city manager put the team together. Mm-hmm. But we can talk about that going forward.
Because I would appreciate for there to be rotation for other school committee members too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing where we are. We're on Member Clancy's item, Ms. McCullough.
Thank you. Member Clancy had asked if she weren't able to be here in time, if I could speak to this, I believe, through the chair. Dr. Monarez, if you had something to share on this, I believe Member Clancy thought you may have an update on this. She just wants us to ensure where we are as far as students having them for the year, that our staff has them, and that we are ready to go for the year, and the plan as the year goes on, as they may become damaged, that students will receive replacements. So through the chair to Dr. Monarez.
Dr. Monarez?
Yes, through the chair. So I'm asking Bob and Sarah to come up, and so they're just going to speak briefly to where we are in terms of numbers, refresh and replenish plan, so that we do address the fact that, computers only last for so long. In many ways, they're like what pencils used to be, right? And then they're also going to share some exciting news on what we're planning for our instructional aids. So thank you, team.
Sure. So through the chair, I'm not sure who I'm talking to since Laura's not here. I'll talk to you, Mayor. The Chromebooks actually were in a very good place for the student Chromebooks this year. So at the end of last year, we used the Emergency Connectivity Fund to purchase 23,192 student Chromebooks, and we've staged those at all the schools. Those are going to be for 1st to 12th graders, 12 plus graders. So those are at all the schools, ready to go to be handed out on the first day of school. In terms of repairs, each school has some spares in those 23,000, but what we did at the end of last year is we collected all the student and staff Chromebooks back. Some of those were on lease and have been returned. We've got another group that are on lease that's going to be returned as well, but we should have approximately 8,000 Chromebooks that we'll have as spares. So this year we're going to be in very good shape for the student Chromebooks. In terms of the staff Chromebooks, we basically collected all the teacher and instructional assistant Chromebooks at the end of last year. All the teachers had a Chromebook and a MacBook Air. We're standardizing on the MacBook Air going forward for the teachers. And in terms of the good news for the instructional assistants, this year we're going to be purchasing MacBook Airs for all instructional assistants. So it's not going to be for the first day of school. We've got to do the whole purchasing process. We're likely going to lease those, speaking to sustainability. So I would say it's going to be a few months before that happens because of the whole supply chain issue and getting that stuff done. But that is in the works now. In terms of the overall sustainability, we did purchase those 23,000 Chromebooks. So we do have a plan to start leasing Chromebooks in 3 years and then create a cycle of leasing Chromebooks so that we don't have to come back in 3, 4, or 5 years and say, hey, we need to go buy 23,000 Chromebooks. So, do you have anything else there? Did I cover it all?
I think you covered everything. The only thing I think you left out was that we have iPads for all pre-K and K. And the pre-K to grade 3 devices will be remaining in classrooms and sent home if needed. And that we are also, when we roll out the plan with principals, we're also going to be providing some new updated device guides that are simpler. They're in translations right now. And then some additional digital citizenship lessons about caring, creating a culture of caring, and ownership over the devices, because the devices will be with the students for a few years.
Okay, Member McCall?
Thank you, and thank you for that update regarding the paraprofessionals. I think that's wonderful that they'll be getting the MacBooks as well. Through the chair, my question is there a uniform plan in place for the district overall when there is a damaged Chromebook? Will that be the same at each school? Will they have replacements on hand? Will they have to go through the district office? How will that work?
So through the chair, in terms of the plan, we're actually rolling out that plan to the principals tomorrow. As Sarah mentioned, we want to foster device ownership, right? So if a student's Chromebooks break, we want to have a spare for them, which we will have. Every school will have spares. And what they'll do is they'll check in their Chromebook and mark it as out for repairs, but it's still associated with that student. They'll give that student a loaner and check that out to that student. So technically that student has 2 devices checked out. When that Chromebook, it'll be picked up by the technician and repaired. When it comes back, the school will be able to say, okay, well, who does this belong to? They'll look it up. They'll call that student down. They'll check back in their loaner, so it's back in their pool, and they'll mark their Chromebook back in working condition and give that back to the student.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Member Kamara?
Thank you to the chair. Can you just tell me how, so do they go to the library in the school, or where are they going to gather to do all of this stuff?
So each school has a different process. Some schools have a student help desk where they can do that, and we're looking to expand the student help desk. And then some schools, they go to the library media specialist, so each school has a designated person or people. Sometimes it's the school clerk. It depends on, we like to leave those decisions up to the schools on what works best for their workflow.
Okay. And then so my other question is that does the students and their families know the processes in terms of who to go to at each specific school for stuff like that, if it's a student help desk or any other that you've mentioned?
So again, when the schools roll out this, the first time, we handed out Chromebooks, they were through windows of cars and things like that. So this is going to be a new refresh, so schools will be communicating that to their students. But that's a really good point. I think we'll make sure that we communicate that in this message going to them, of make sure the families know where to get help. On the back of the help guides, and they are translated, there are contacts to also the district support as well. Each school will have 30 Chromebooks per every 300 students, right? A car per every 300 students in their building, so they'll have those instead of having to always wait for us to deliver those Chromebooks.
My last question. When it comes to repair, and I heard you mention that someone from our public school administration will go and grab it. So is there like a department within the with our administration where folks are fixing things and getting things back into each of the schools? That sounds fantastic. And are we using any of our tech students to do some of these things?
So through the chair, there's, in the IT department, currently we have 12 IT support specialists. We're bringing 4 more on because we're about at 30,000. I tell the technicians we're at 30,000 devices, and they say, well, you're only counting the iPads, the Chromebooks, and the teacher devices. They say we got the printers, we've got the hotspots, all this stuff. So, anyway, the school committee approved that last year, and so we're going to be hiring those folks. So basically, the way the technicians work currently is every technician has about 4 schools that they're assigned to. Generally, it's 1 high school or middle school, and then 3 elementary schools. So they have tickets that come in from those schools, like my printer doesn't work, the Wi-Fi is not working, or whatnot. But they're also visiting those schools throughout the week to fix those problems. And when they do that, they bring repaired Chromebooks back, and then they take broken Chromebooks with them. That's sort of part of their process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and appreciate that. Good luck on the Chromebooks. It's nice that we have them. Okay. I have to step over for a minute. Just on the last 2 WAMs, 2-232 and 233, the contracts. We can send those to the executive session because they're on the executive session agenda. Then we can discuss what we want to do from there. And can even approve them or we can negotiate. So, okay. So those will send to executive session, which they are on the items for tonight. So those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Okay. So we are on the annual business meeting of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees scheduled on November 1st, 2022, a voting delegate. Member Johnson?
Thank you to the chair. I would like to make a nomination that member Sue Mailman be the delegate and member Laura Clancy be the alternate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will do all those in favor? Opposed, so ordered. Okay. Consider school committee date in November from the 3rd of November to November 10th. Any reason why we're changing that? No. Oh, it's the same day. Okay, never right. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed, so ordered. Okay. We have to review and as appropriate file outstanding items of the administration. Ms. Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me be very frank as to why I filed this item. As my colleagues are all well aware, having been through their school committee training, school committee is supposed to stay at the level of policy, budget, goals, and evaluation of the superintendent, and we're the employer of record for collective bargaining. When school committees have to file items that get into the realm of management, it usually means that something is broken. And it struck me that certainly my own experience recently has involved filing such items. And I wanted to start fresh, knowing that we have management in which the role of the superintendent and administration is going to be something that is adhered to, and so I wanted, at least within my own bound, to ensure that I was fulfilling my responsibilities as a school committee member and not over-managing. So I do have a significant list of items that I would propose that we file. Most of them have me as the proposer of the item, but certainly as my colleagues are aware, once an item is before the school committee, it is the property of this committee, not a property of the individual member. So I have a couple of these that I have a question on just in passing, and then a fairly extensive list. With regard, and I'm going to go in order, so if so you can follow it. The first one that I guess I would ask a question about is GB 1-247, which is the one regarding the nursing department. And I don't need an answer on that, but it's not clear to me that there necessarily has been a conversation with the nursing department around what's been working, what's not been working. Certainly the continuation of the CNAs and the space for students to wait is part of that. But mostly I just wanted to mark that. I will absolutely make a motion to file that. I will make a motion to file GB 1-153, which is the one preceding that as well. My understanding through the chair to the superintendent is you wish us to continue with GB 2-18-.11, which is the COVID one, unless you want to have a different item. Fair enough. So I'll leave that on. I will be making a motion to file GB 2-46, GB 2-76 with great joy, actually, because that was the waiting for buses one. So GB 2-148, GB 2-149, GB 0176.1, GB 0263. By the way, Madam Clerk, I will give you a full list on this. On GB 0263, I did actually have a question for administration. This is the crowdsourcing policy, which I was, to be entirely fair to the Worcester Public Schools, Section G did actually come up in my office this week. As my colleagues may be aware, MASC actually writes the model policy. And we've been agreeing that this is one that is well-intended but not frequently followed, partly due to communication. And so I did just wonder, through the chair to administration, do we have a plan on communication of the crowdsourcing policy? And is there any comment that you'd want to make on that?
Through the chair, we do have a plan. Ms. Kelly, she has the details. We're actually speaking to principals about it, I believe, tomorrow, correct? And the whole piece is making sure that the information gets down to our classroom teachers, so our classroom teachers and our support staff feel very comfortable asking for things that they need from their principals instead of feeling like they have to go out to somebody else to get that. So we are going to communicate that to them, let our principals know that they can communicate that to their staff, again, with the intent of not having them feel like they have to go ask somebody else for supplies or any needs.
Thank you. Yes, and I will just say, as a member of the school committee, it's honestly been a continued frustration for me to see this sort of buildup of outside requests that never get here. And I know, I found out, by the way, from my colleagues that there are actually districts that bar crowdsourcing, with the idea that the school district is actually supposed to be making the provision. And I'm not saying we're there, but like the philosophy is correct, and I want to embrace that. Thank you. Make a motion to file GB 1-153, GB 1-249, GB 1-242, GB 1-153.1, which I don't even remember what that was about, GB 2-33, GB 2-185.1, GB 1-281, GB 0-229.1, GB 8-54, GB 9-313, GB 2-73.1, almost done, GB 8-356.1, that one actually, Ms. McCullough, is yours, but it's actually from 2020. That's okay. GB 1-236.1, GB 1-218, and GB 1-241. Thank you. And I will absolutely supply that to you in writing.
Member Millman?
I would like, can we hold items at school committee?
Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of items here, many that were prior to any of the newer people being on. I had specific questions on a bunch. I was not prepared that there were, I guess I wish I had known these 20 were going to file and these 6 were going to keep alive. So I'd like to see that so that I know that the questions I had on different ones
You can ask.
are still real, or are still alive. Am I being clear? I didn't expect to, I would have liked to have seen, these are the ones we're going to, I mean, it should be coming maybe from each of us? I don't, yes?
It will.
Yeah.
So, Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
so
can I make a suggestion?
I would not want to hold then, do you want me to just list the ones I want to keep open? Is that how you want to do it?
Yeah, we can compare then.
Hmm?
What we can do then is compare, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, let's hold it till we can see them, what we're even talking, I mean, unless you want to spend an hour on this tonight.
So,
Correct me if I'm wrong, when we got this, I think we all were under the understanding that we would take a look at it, things that we wanted to file, we would file, and things that we're looking to hold because we still want more information on that, that's what we would do tonight.
Okay, so we will take the hour.
Yes?
All right. Okay, so each of us will go in turn then? Is that what we're doing?
Unless there are, if there are ones on here that she referenced just now that she would like to file or is willing to file, if we're all in agreement, right? We could file? Hold on, Member McCullough?
Through the chair, thank you, through the chair. I would just ask, I mean, the ones that Member Novick read that are her items, certainly she has every right to file, and I'd be okay with filing those. And the one that she mentioned that was mine, I'm okay with filing that, that's 2020. But I would say if people want to hold certain ones, then we could just say hold those so that they can go back for further information that way.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm incorrect on that, but the ones that Member Novick requested to file were either her own or some very old items that I believe, if I tried to write down as quickly as possible on the ones that she said file, but I'd be okay with us holding the ones that people wanted to hold as well. So
Okay.
that way,
Right.
but it cleans up a lot of these, I think. Just that's my interpretation of that, because I would think
Okay,
administration doesn't necessarily have information on some of these to share tonight, and if we want to make sure they're going forward, we would have to.
So I'd like to
Would it be, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Would it be easier if I just go back and go down the list and we could, if we're all in agreement to file, we just do it that way? And if we want to hold it, then we hold it? Is it easier to do it that way?
Sure.
Instead of each one going through and saying what they want to hold and okay. And I don't even know where the first one begins now because I'm all
Is that
over the
page
place.
2? There's a page.
Hold
1.
on. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Is this, Tracy, what's
Okay.
the start of it?
All right, so we'll just go down the line here. GB1-153, file.
No, sorry, I'm not on board here. Okay, page, all right, got it. 153. So,
if we're willing to file, do I just say?
did you want to file that one, Tracy? Okay.
To file, those that oppose, so ordered. Let's go to the next one, GB1-247, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB2-191,
I would be okay with this being filed as long as I did already have a conversation with the superintendent about this so that something happens on this, but the item itself can be filed.
all set, file. Those that oppose, so ordered. You can't hear me. File. GB2-191. GB0-138.2, file.
Hold. I'd like to hold that.
Hold.
Yes.
Those that oppose, no. Yes, I know. Hold. GB2-18.11, file. Hold. Those that oppose? No. So ordered. GB2-46, file. Those that oppose? No. Okay. GB2-57, hold. Those that oppose? No. So ordered. GB2-76, file. Those that oppose? No. So ordered. GB2-11 and GB2-121.
So
Are we holding that?
I'd like to hold that.
I'm sorry, I had hold on my paper, that's why I'm asking, I'm sorry. Hold. Those that oppose? No, so ordered. GB2-148, file. Those that oppose? No, so ordered. GB2-149, file. GB2-11. I had hold here. Those that oppose? No, so ordered. GB0-176.1, file. Those that oppose? No, so ordered. GB0-203, file. Those that oppose? No, so ordered.
I had a note on that one, Chair, to combine it, and I'm wondering what I was thinking about combining it with. I guess it's ongoing. I mean, we're going to have a school liaison model that we implement, and I would think we'd want similar information on that school liaison model that we had with the school resource model, so it could be a new item. I guess I'm concerned that when we just get rid of these items that had a purpose on here for some point, we've got to remember to get it back on somehow, even if we want to.
Through the chair?
I'm not clear how that will, yeah.
Yeah, if I could recommend, especially this first year with the SLO MOU, what is being requested to work with or to be put in there is that we do a review of it a couple of times during the school year to see how the model is working.
Okay.
So we could bring back our recommendation, just, we're going to just do these reviews at least twice this school year before we are ready for the next year. And we can bring that report of what we found back. And then if the committee so desires moving into next school year, we could have maybe quarterly reports of just how things are progressing with this model.
And it would include things like student arrests, for
Exactly,
example. Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So we all set with filing? Thank you. GB 0-263, file.
Did you want to file this? Okay, we've seen no fundraising through the chair.
Through the chair, that was actually what Dr. Maneras just was addressing, was the crowdfunding question that's going to be addressed with principals. So
I thought we were talking about resource officers. We were talking about crowdfunding.
26.
This through the chair, this what Member Novak is talking about is when she asked, do we have a plan to communicate with the principals about the crowdsourcing? So from her question before.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All set?
Yep.
GB 1-116, file. Those that oppose, so no. Those that oppose, no. Member Kamara?
So
I guess we're filing, but I would like to, because I would like to, I don't know if anything much has happened, but if the current administration, I don't know if there's been changes to this bullying hotline. If the administration can provide something on that, that would be great, but I'm okay to file.
Through the chair, what we'd like to recommend is that this request be folded into our whole wellness and supports plan that we're going to design with others. So the title of the hotline may not get changed right away, just because you don't want to change it and then change it again, but we do want it to be part of a bigger plan.
Thank you.
All set? GB1-153. We're looking to file that? I had.
Mr. Chair.
Member Kamara?
Thank you. Yes, I'm okay to file this, but I think then that goes back to our conversation from before, because I'm interested in the second piece of it, working with third-party mental health, so that goes back into our wellness and support plan. Thank you.
Thank you. All set? GB1-249, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB1-242, file.
Mike's on it. That was from 2021. Why did it still remain here? I assume someone, you don't know? Okay. Nobody ever responded. So I'd like to see, I'd hold it, and I'd like to see what the response is. Well, we can get one now, can't we? What's our ROTC programs? I'd be interested in that information. Okay, so see, this is the point. Then file a new item. So we got to remember which ones we got to file again. Why can't we leave it open? Did it belong in it? Was it in a committee?
Mr. Chair.
I don't know. I think that on some of these old ones, I'm just wondering, 2021, I'm just thinking maybe file a new item and let the.
I know, that's what Tracy just said. I get that whole thing, but I don't know, it's like recreating the wheel. Somebody already said it, it's a good thing, nobody ever responded, why can't we get a response?
Mr. Chair.
I mean, we will get a response if,
Somebody has to file it again, so if we leave it open, and, okay, so how about this? Can I make a motion to send that to, where does it belong? Programs, probably TLSS?
Well, at this time, I think that we might be able to find out whether or not it was already in a committee, if we have.
Well, they're saying it wasn't.
It never what? We never heard back from, okay. Member Novick?
Mr. Chair, part of the test of this should be if this is actually a school committee item. Okay, we don't need administration to write us a report on the JORTC program. If any of us wants to know how many kids actually go to individual JORTC programs, that's an email. That's part of what we need to actually be holding ourselves accountable to on this committee, is actually to do our job, and that means focusing on goals and focusing on budget, policy. That doesn't mean we file items just for informational purposes. You can get that information without having an item. When we file an item, it goes on an agenda, it creates backlog for Dr. Friel, that then has to go to a staff meeting, which gets assigned to someone has to write us a report, it has to come back to a school committee meeting. Meanwhile, at least a month has passed, and whoever wanted the information hasn't gotten it. In the meantime, you could sit down, you could write an email, you could ask for the information, you could get the information back. No one had to write a report. We didn't have to spend time here on the floor. Unless we need this information for budget or for policy or goals, we shouldn't have an item on it.
Then why have they been there for 3 years?
Because that was actually how I started what I said with respect to my colleague. There has been a relationship which is broken between the school committee and the administration. And this is not only a Worcester thing, it is something I have seen in other districts. that when the school committee doesn't see administration functioning as it should, when we can't get information the ways that you actually are supposed to off agenda, you end up resorting to filing items to do those things. We don't have to do that anymore. And the reason I filed this item to make this request and to ask us to go through this process, first of all, is my indication as the longest serving member and as someone who has a lot of experience with school governance, that I don't think we have to do this anymore. And honestly, my vote that we don't do this anymore, that we actually hold ourselves as individuals accountable, and then as a committee hold ourselves as a committee accountable to only having items on the agenda that actually have to do with the work of the committee, not requests for information, not to be seen to file items, and that is a process that we've had in the past too, but to actually make sure that we do the work that we're here to do, which isn't to have interesting conversations about whatever we wish, but to actually focus on district governance. So again, with respect to my colleague, if you want that information, that's great, send an email and have someone send us an email back. But we don't need to actually have a school committee item on it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Forgive my outburst.
Let's just keep going through them.
So just on that, I mean, I think we had voted back in January to change the rules of the school committee and kind of what Member Novick is kind of talking about. So moving forward, I think with Dr. Monterez and her administration and me as the vice chair doing this, I mean, I think we're willing to work that out, and things would be a little bit different in regards to that. But we're all set. You all set, Member Mailman?
So the next item?
Yeah, okay. So we're following that one, yes. Those that oppose, no. So ordered. You got that one, Helen? Okay. GB 1-265, file.
Well, as I would think this would be policy related, it would be a policy of the committee, the translation services, and it's never been addressed, so I would ask that that does not get filed because I think it's a policy that we do need to look at.
So you want
that's
to hold it?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
sorry.
No, thank you.
So hold. Those that oppose, no. So ordered. GB 2-52,
File.
file. Those that oppose, no. So ordered. GB 2137,
I'm okay with filing this, as I know I've already had a conversation with Mr. Allen, and it's already being looked at, so thank you.
so you want to file that?
Yeah.
Those that oppose, no. So ordered. GB 2150, Member Kamara.
This is a worthy item, so I do want to hold unless, and this is a worthy item, I want to hold this, and I think it provides, the information that is presented can provide other means in terms of policy.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Member Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering, through the Chair to Administration, in terms of this item and also my colleague's following item, is there a conversation that should happen either in teaching, learning, and student supports, or maybe even in school and student performance, around exactly this question that Member Kamara is asking in terms of the secondary school programs, which students go where, what the access is that students have to various programs, how we're making decisions about where those programs go, and so forth. To me, that feels a bit like a subcommittee conversation that then should report back here. That would give her, that would give not only that member the information, but also would be the larger conversation in terms of, are we making good decisions about where we have things and how we place things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, to the chair, I think when I did do this, I believe the recommendation was for it to go to administration at the time, but I'm okay for it to go to TLSS. Okay. Thank you.
So we'll hold this and send it to both of them. We'll hold GB 2150 and GB 2151. We'll hold both of those and we'll send those to teaching and learning. Those that oppose, no. So ordered. Is that Helen? GB1,
May I make a recommendation? Just going back to, not in reference to that, but the JROTC not being here for the question, but kind of anticipating what the question was about. What if we also had that part of the larger conversation about programs? And so therefore, that's an example of one of many programs that are secondary. And so that also becomes part of what is discussed at the teaching and learning standing. Because I think the question's probably about access.
okay,
Okay, so we file it, but just we keep that in mind. Thank you.
thank you.
Or we send it to TLSS with, correct, yes. Yep, yep, okay.
Okay. We agreed to GB1-153.1 file?
No.
What was that?
So, Ms. Novick, this was still on the, through the chair, this was still on, why was this still there?
They didn't respond.
And it went to Mr. Augustus?
Hold on.
Or was it a joint meeting
Are you-
item?
You all set?
No, I think Ms. Novick has an answer.
Yeah, Member Novick?
So if you look at the motion, it actually references an account number. So it actually was part of the budget conversation in 2021. And no, city administration didn't get back to us. I believe that this is actually part of the larger conversation, honestly, that Member McCullough has just referenced in terms of safe routes to school and so forth. There is that conversation which is going on. I also know that there is at least one item that currently is in our joint committee with education that also references sidewalks and so forth.
Yep.
So I think that because that was sort of a one-off of looking at that one stretch, rather than look at that one stretch, we say we're having a larger conversation. Let's file this item and be faithful to the larger conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Kamara?
Thank you. But I agree with Member Novick, but I'm also interested to learn, as we're talking about this at a broad spectrum, that we also then focus in on these specific schools, because these are schools that are within safety areas that I think that are high risk. So as we're looking at it broadly, if we can kind of like come back to a specific, schools, Belmont and then Tech, I think that would be a good approach.
Okay.
Through the chair, just to let the committee know, so we are currently, we have a request for proposals out where we're looking for a group to come and do a full safety audit of the district in terms of our facilities, our policies, our procedures, the level of implementation, and included in that is an assessment of our ingress and regress at all of our schools. And so we'll get those recommendations back from, well, first we're looking for the group. Once they do the assessment and do a full audit, then we'll get those recommendations. We'll be able to bring that back to the committee and let you know how we plan on addressing it and any fiscal implications. So it's much bigger, but we do plan on looking at that as well.
So we can file? Those that oppose, no. So ordered. GB2-187.
I am.
Hold.
Member Kamara?
Thank you. I do want to file this because this is also under the approach of our wellness plan. So thank you.
Thank you. File?
I'd like to hold it. Isn't this part of potential budget increases? We never kind of finished the conversation of how many reps we would have versus how many school adjustment counselors versus psychologists. So wouldn't we want to keep this as part of the discussion?
I think we went over this, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we talked about this during our budget. We kind of talked about that, and there was a number put out there. And I think I had asked that it come back during the first quarter to kind of take a look at that. And I also had that conversation with Dr. Monterez myself, so.
So is that an item, is this item in committee already? Loris?
No, Member Clancy?
Thank you. So through the chair, there's actually an item in governance that is to request the administration to provide updates within the next couple of months on the caseloads regarding school psychologists, school adjustment counselors, and other positions to provide social emotional support to Worcester Public School students. So that is in governance.
Thank you.
It's not that.
We good to file? File that. Okay, GB 2-33. File. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 2-91. File.
Is this in committee? This is going to be an ongoing item, I would imagine. Is this in committee, Chair?
I'm sorry. So through the chair, actually, this item I would like to keep open just because I think that it's something that I know the previous administration had made note about looking into. So it's just something that I would like us to keep. I mean, I don't mind filing it, but it's just something that I want us to keep open in the back of our minds as we move forward.
Through the chair, if I could respond.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, right now the request looks very much like it's a facilities request, and I'm wondering, is it about a facilities need or is it about a deeper plan around early literacy, early language, just an access?
So through the chair, it was actually, what it was a request to, a facility is yes, to look for the space to actually have a center for pre-KK all together. Because I heard a lot, what it was that I was hearing a lot of requests from early childhood educators that were saying the collaboration and just to have one center. I know other districts have done it, so it was just something that I wanted to put on the radar for administration. So like I said, I have no problem filing it, but I think it might be something down the road to look into.
Okay. And we can, it's whatever the committee chooses. I just wanted to know for my knowledge what the why is behind it.
Yeah.
So I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So will we, okay, so hold. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 2-165.1. We're looking to file that. Yes. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 1-301.
Through the chair, I would just suggest GB 1-301, GB 2-138. Those sound like they could be filed because they'll be under the comprehensive school safety audit that's going on that will address a lot of those issues.
Okay, so we'll look to file both of those. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 1-281, file.
Meaning there was never an answer.
Are you asking me a question?
Why would we? Okay. I'm still confused.
Well,
about why, if we never got an answer, and that was an item that folks had concern about, why we wouldn't still have concern.
Well, all right, Member Novick, I believe she had this item, so she could speak to that.
Because when you have an administration where you have concerns about whether or not people are actually committing ethics violations, you file an item to ask if people have been trained in ethics. When you no longer have that concern, you file the item.
Hold on, Dr. Monterez?
If I could, we have been talking about making sure that we have a way of, please come up, Ms. Boulay, because I don't want to say it incorrectly, having a way to monitor that people are aware of our policies, that we don't just have them in some book somewhere and we expect everyone to know that. So we've talked about that as a team, and Ms. Boulay can speak briefly to that just to kind of ease any concerns.
Ms. Boulay?
Through the chair, and also acknowledging Ms. Member O'Connell-Novik's attempt to really parse out the information that should be in front of the committee and not, but also Dr. Menarez's desire for good communication with the committee administration. So with regard to this particular item, this pertains to a state law that requires that employees are provided information around ethics requirements in Massachusetts. In 1 year, they're required to be provided with a written summary. In another year, they're required to basically watch a video and answer some questions on it. So in 2019, the committee might recall that Superintendent Benenda would have a convocation. And in 2019, which was the last in-person convocation, on the morning of the convocation, the schools ran the video prior to staff going over to the DCU Center, and we did the video in 2019. So we met our obligation for the video. As the superintendent has said, the district has an automated distribution of all policies, including this policy. There's an electronic signature that employees click to acknowledge that they received it. We do realize, again, as the superintendent said, that clicking an electronic signature doesn't necessarily mean that you read it, but this is also one of the policies that's highlighted annually for staff to principals to review with their staff.
Okay. Thank you.
In anticipation of the next one, I think I might sit here for a moment.
Thank you.
Oh.
Any other
Corey?
questions?
So what's the answer to that? Through the chair?
I don't know if the chair would like to dispense with this particular one. And
No, go ahead, answer that question.
so this
Huh?
pertain, Mr. Chair, this
it's
pertains to the next item.
GB
144.
GB2-144? Yep, okay.
Through the chair, the committee has a CORI policy in its policy manual, and the district abides by the committee's policy. So we don't have separate rules, but you have a very thorough policy on criminal records checks, both criminal records in Massachusetts and a fingerprinting that is in the policy manual, and that's what we follow.
So we, I'd like to send this to committee. I'm not sure what committee it would go to. Governance?
Okay.
Can I send this to governance?
So we'll hold this, we'll send it to governance? We'll hold both. You want to hold both or just this one?
The CORI one.
Okay, so we're going to file GB 1-281?
Yep.
Those that oppose, no. So ordered. And we will hold, and we will send the governance GB 2-144. Am I correct?
Yes.
Member Novick?
Entirely agree with that, and I particularly appreciate my colleague calling out volunteers on this. I don't think we actually do have a CORI policy, though. I've got the, I don't need to have that answer now, but I'm not actually sure that what was just said is actually the case. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get that information, we'll send it to governance. Thank you. Those that are opposed, no. So ordered. Okay. GB 2-40. Member Kamara?
Hold that. Oh, yeah. I want to hold this, but I do know that from speaking with the superintendent, I think she mentioned that she is taking this up with some of the organizations, and I don't want to speak for her, but.
Dr. Monarez?
Yes, so if I understand in reading this request, what the committee was looking for was some formalized agreements with our different community organizations. We are in the process, I've been having conversations with just about all of them, not everyone on here, but just about putting together an MOU. So we're working on having MOUs or some kind of agreement where we are, we agree to services that we're going to be providing each other. And so that is moving forward. It would be up to the committee if you'd like to keep that and have us bring that back upon completion, or have us just do it.
Okay. So we'll hold that? Okay. Those that oppose?
Thank you for going through each of these items. Chair.
So ordered. Okay, got a couple more, right? GB 0.229.1, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 8-54, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 9-313, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. And GB 2-73.1, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. So we are all set with. Oh, is there one more page? Where? Is it the GB 8-356.1? Thank you. File. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. And GB 1-236.1, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. GB 1-218, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. And GB 1-241, file. Those that oppose, no, so ordered. And we're all set? He wants to hold it now. Okay. Okay.
Before we,
Member Kamara?
yes, I just want to say, like, before we move forward, there is I had to liaise with our my member here about my item about GB 2-187. It is the item that my member Clancy, I didn't forget your name, said was it is in one direction with regards to budget, but what I'm actually asking for is a little bit with regards to how we can provide non-clinical services to students, non-clinical mental health services to students, which from the past I don't think we were doing because our employees were putting off fires, but that is mentioned in our mental health plans because that's something that I really want us to look into doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all set?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we are on to GB 2-230 to consider an increase in the day-to-day substitute rate of pay from $85 to $110. Dr. Monterez?
Sorry, I'm looking for my information. So I'll speak to this, and then if there's any other detailed questions, we could bring up Ms. Boulay. You know, we've done a deep dive. I do want to thank our HR department for doing this and just doing some comparatives of how we paid our day-to-day subs and that rate compared to what surrounding districts or just districts in the state of Massachusetts pay their day-to-day subs, and we're very much below everybody else. And our staff, our principals, and most importantly, our scholars deserve to have substitutes who show up and who are of the highest caliber. And so if I'm someone earning my credentialing and I'm subbing or I'm thinking about going into teaching, I'm going to go to the district that pays the most because I have a choice. And so this increase is to really start to recruit the most talent, because that's what, again, our scholars deserve, to stay competitive. And so this is our recommendation, to increase this. We did take a look at our existing budget, and there we can do this with some funds that are already there, so we don't have to make any changes there. So that's our recommendation, so we can stay competitive.
Thank you. Member Mailman?
And does this bring us higher than surrounding districts?
This takes us to very much, Jennifer, I know you know the exact, very close to, we're kind of a little bit higher than the median, if I remember correctly, but there's some distinction that we can look at later.
Okay.
Through
Ms.
the
Boulez?
chair, through the chair, not all surrounding districts responded to the survey, but this puts us, there were 18 total, including us. This puts us higher than 12 of the remaining 17. Most of the districts are 90, 95, 100 in that range, so this really puts us a good gap.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll look to approve this. Roll call?
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Tamaro?
Yes.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell?
Yes.
And Mayor Pitt?
Okay. GB 2-231, to create a policy governing the use of day-to-day substitutes. Member Clancy?
Thank you. Actually, it's the recommendation to go to governance and employee issues, and I've spoken with Dr. Monterez about this, and I know that this is something that's being worked on, and I'm happy that we just raised the day-to-day sub rate, and I think it's going to open up our possibilities for getting more subs. It's just something that I want us to keep aware of, because I know that we're pulling a lot from our paraprofessionals in the classroom, and I want to keep them in the classroom, especially our one-on-ones that are working with our special education students. So speaking with Dr. Monterez, I'm just asking that if we could get a report back, because I know that she's looking at a process in place with all, and once she presents it to administration, so that's, it doesn't need to go to governance, just a report back on where we are would be great.
Okay. So we'll send that to the administration for a report back. Thank you. Approve? We're all set, right? GB 2-232, to vote to execute the contract for employment between the Worcester School Committee and Brian E. Allen for the position of Deputy Superintendent, Chief Operating Officer, and Chief Financial Officer for a period of July 21st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. And then GB 2-233, to vote the contract of employment between the Worcester School Committee and Marie Morse for the position of Assistant Superintendent, Teaching and Learning for the period of July 21st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. So I am going to make I'm going to ask to hold this until the next school committee meeting. Member Novick.
So I understand that we received these this afternoon, and I understand that that puts pressure on us in terms of our ability to turn this around. I am deeply uncomfortable with the fact that we have two long-serving employees who are continuing to function effectively as acting without us actually giving them settled contracts. And for us to sit on this, I mean, it's the 18th of August. We don't meet again until the first week of September. We're starting school in the meantime, among a number of other things. I understand the mayor's concern, but as a member of this committee, I will oppose a motion to hold. I do not think that we should be holding these contracts any longer. I actually think we already should have voted them, honestly, 2 weeks ago. So I think that it is incumbent upon this committee to treat our employees fairly, and I think that means that we move forward with negotiations this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we will take a vote to hold the motion.
Member Clancy.
Yes.
Member Kamara.
I'm sorry, what?
Hold the motion.
Right.
They're working with other
I would like to hold.
Member Mailman.
No.
Member McCullough.
Yes.
Member O'Connell.
No.
Mayor Petty and Vice Chair Johnson.
I say no. So what was that?
If a tie, the motion fails.
Excuse me?
Am I correct, Madam Clerk? On a tie vote, the motion fails. So if the motion was to hold, the motion failed.
Okay. So we are going to recess, right? No?
I just, through the chair, we did have one supplemental agenda item. I don't know if we could take it before we go to governance. I mean, executive session, sorry.
I don't have that. Yeah, it did not get, it didn't get here. Huh? GB 2-234, to consider eliminating the following line of page 13 of the student handbook. Students will be permitted to carry backpacks made of mesh or transparent material and the secondary level. Eliminating this line will allow students to carry backpacks of any material while in school. Member Clancy?
Thank you. So through the chair, obviously this item was brought to us by our student representatives because there was concern that if the students were carrying backpacks throughout the school day, they had to be either mesh or transparent, I'm sorry. So I'm looking and speaking with some students who are already in our public schools, and some schools are allowing students to carry around any backpacks that they want. Other schools are holding students accountable to, like I said, carry transparent or mesh bags. And at this point, I'm asking that we eliminate that line from this policy, which would allow students, especially at the secondary level, to carry backpacks with them throughout the school day. Thank you.
Member Kamara?
Thank you to the chair. I just want some clarifying things here with my member Clancy just mentioned. So is it the motion to eliminate the policy so that students can wear whatever bags that they want to put on their backs and go to school with, put it in their locker, but then bring it back home with them? Or is it the motion for them to be able to do that plus wear it throughout the school day?
Through the chair, the motion would be for them to be able to carry their backpacks throughout the school day.
Throughout the school day?
Yes.
Are those the same thing or different things?
It would, right now, they're only allowed to, I'm sorry, through the chair, right now, they're only allowed to, if they're carrying a backpack throughout the school day, it has to be transparent or of mesh material so that they can be see-through. At this point, I'm asking that that line gets eliminated so that students are able to carry any sort of backpack throughout the school day.
To the chair. I'm in favor of us eliminating the item that specifies the type of bags that students have to carry. I'm a little concerned in terms of eliminating the procedure for students to wear backpacks throughout the school day. That is a little, and I guess why I'm thinking that and why I want to perhaps pose a second question is what is the reason to why we would want students to have a backpack on them throughout the school day?
Through the chair, I'll just speak on my own personal experience with my own high schooler. I've had numerous times that she's been called out tardy to a class because the school building is so large and she's going back and forth to her locker, and she said it's very hard to go out in the school day to have to keep going back and forth to her locker. So, I mean, just from my personal experience, I know that speaking with her, and we've heard from our student representatives who have said that the transparent bags and the mesh bags are low quality and they're expensive to replace, and that's why I'm asking that it would be eliminated and that students are able to carry backpacks with them at the secondary level.
I do agree with one side of the policy for us to eliminate variations of bags that students can carry, but I do not agree with the other policy that allows them to carry it throughout the day just because of safety. And I think we all want to think a little bit about that. So if we can maybe, I don't know, I want to hold this item.
Member Clancy?
So I'm just going to, you can, however you want to vote on this item, but the item on the agenda tonight is to eliminate that students, if they're carrying a backpack within the school building, that it is mesh or transparent material. So if we are, the vote tonight would be to remove that item, essentially letting students carry backpacks throughout the school day. So you would just vote whether or not you agree with that.
So again, we'll take the vote. I mean, the vote, it would just be, because it's all encompassed, right? So it's all together, so you take the vote based on that. Member Kamara?
Right. But as a school committee member, I do want to, like I said, the second piece of the policy is what concerns me. And I want to because the argument about students not having the opportunity to go to the lockers, and this is at a secondary level, I'm not really strong on that argument. So I would ask my other members, because this is like a safety thing, and I would like to, maybe others can add on this or whatever, but I would like for us to revisit that. And if it's the same item, I'll probably want us to break that apart if we can, but yeah.
Okay.
So through the chair, I just want to mention, we don't tell students what backpacks they can bring to school, so a student's allowed to bring any kind of backpack they want. Right now, they put it in their locker. So we're asking that, our policy right now states that if you're walking around in the school building and you have to carry a backpack, that it be transparent or mesh material. And like I said, we're looking for that to be removed from the policy, and that students will be able to carry any backpacks throughout the school day.
Member Novick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise in support. Much like Mrs. Clancy, I have had the experiences of children having to be on crutches and having to get permission to carry a particular kind of backpack because I wasn't going to buy them a clear mesh backpack that was both environmentally wasteful and going to fall apart in a matter of a short number of weeks. I also, frankly, am offended by the idea that we effectively remove children's ability to have any privacy. I know several of my colleagues have had conversations about you maybe not wanting to share with the universe when you're in middle school that you actually need to carry menstrual pads, but we're going to make everybody see that information because we're saying the only way you can do that if you can't manage to stick it in the pocket of your jeans is to actually have it in a clear backpack. This policy actually, to me, is very representative of a particular way of looking at our students as being safety hazards all the time, and are effectively having a policy that is founded on a fundamental mistrust of our students, which I am bothered by already. But I also agree with the parents who have sent us messages saying that this is actually really wasteful. These backpacks are destroyed in a matter of weeks. And the choices the students then have is either that, or they carry stacks of things. And I'm fairly certain, I know that I have actually a very vivid memory of carrying a stack of books along with my then netbook down the stairs at the Durkin Administration Building and having the netbook go flying down the stairs. And that's not actually good for them. So I'm pretty sure that we've actually destroyed some Chromebooks this way too. I think that if we're actually interested in being responsible with property, one of the ways that we do that is give students a way of doing that. And I think that saying to students, we expect that you're going to make good choices in terms of how you choose to transport the materials that you need from one class to another over the course of the day. I think that's wise. I also know that we do have some very large secondary schools, and we are only building bigger ones. I understand that in terms of traffic management, sometimes that means that both administration maybe needs to have some sort of restrictions on when students can get there, and also in some cases students just can't get there. They're at the other end of the school for much of the day. They should have a convenient and honestly sort of physically responsible way of bringing their materials with them. So I entirely support the motion. I appreciate both Member Clancy and the administration, Dr. Freeland in particular, being open to us getting it on tonight so that we then will actually start the year with this policy, which I think, again, is another indication to the community that we intend to have a different relationship with our students. Thank you.
Member Mailman?
I'd just like to understand Member Kamara's concern.
So I think her concern is that they are now allowed to walk around the school with a backpack that isn't clear and transparent. No? What is the concern?
So I am clear that I agree that students should be able to have, for their parents to purchase whatever kinds of bags that they solely want to purchase. My concern here is that then we are saying that students should then carry whatever set backpack with them throughout the day in school. The piece of that is what I'm a little, it's not working out quite well for me, because we have lockers, we have other means, and the arguments that I'm hearing from both of my members is that due to distances in the secondary schools or due to I also carry books quite recently myself because I was in the public schools to classrooms, and I never had to carry my backpack with me all of the time. And I do know some parents in our public schools who have concern over the second piece, which is allowing any student to have a backpack on them throughout the school. And it's not the question about whether or not we trust our student. That is not the question here. That is not what we're talking about. But it's more about the overall safety of our public schools.
Okay. So, roll call?
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
No.
Member Mailman?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Petty and Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes. Member McAuliffe?
Thank you. Through the chair, I would like to make a request to review items GB 2-232 and GB 2-233 to adjust my vote, please.
What?
Go ahead.
Read the two items, please.
GB 2-233 and GB 2-232, GB 2-233 on the motion that had been to hold. I would like to change my vote, please.
So we doing another one, or were you all set?
I don't. You have to suspend the rules.
Okay, so we'll suspend the rules? So we'll be looking to suspend the rules on this in,
So I would need to make a motion to suspend the rules first, then. Yes, I would make a motion to suspend the rules.
okay.
Member Clancy?
Sorry, just to clarify, so we're now voting on these two items tonight, correct?
We're going to.
Are we voting on the hold?
We're still voting to hold, right? No. Okay.
Chair. Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we actually don't need to do reconsideration because we haven't actually finished the meeting. What Member McCullough was simply asking is to go on the record as having voted in the other direction, which she is within her rights to do. It also, of course, as my colleagues have noted, will not actually change the outcome of the vote.
Okay.
She simply can do that.
Thank you. So we will now go into recess to go into executive session. We will come out, back out after executive session. In executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to conduct collective bargaining regarding grievance 20-21-11, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and to conduct collective bargaining regarding grievance 21/22-36, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation of the workers' compensation for a teacher if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the school committee and the chair so declares, I do. To conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel, deputy superintendent, chief operating officer, and chief financial officer-elect Brian E. Allen. To conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel, assistant superintendent, teaching and learning, elect Marie D. Morse. To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may be detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, I do. Successor contract negotiation, NAGE R1-16, cafeteria workers, and to discuss strategy with respect to litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the litigation position of a public body and the chair so declares, I do. Educational Association of Worcester, Worcester Public Schools, MCAD, docket number 20 WEM 02609, class action case, various individual MCAD cases filed by employees related to reasonable accommodation requests in Worcester School Committee and Educational Association of Worcester, Department of Labor Relations, case number MUP-20-8368. We will adjourn, right? We will be back.
Are we?
Here.
Here.
Member Kamara?
Here.
Member Manley?
Here.
Member McCullough?
Here.
Member O'Connor?
Here.
And Mayor Petty?
Okay, so we will go on to the first. So pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to deny grievance 2122-36. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Manley?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
Mayor Petty?
Okay. Pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to execute the contract of Brian Allen as Deputy Superintendent, Chief Operating Officer, and Chief Financial Officer for a period commencing July 21st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. And it's an approximate 3-year deal from July 21st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Extensions of 1 year of July 1st on each year unless school committee exercises the right to not extend. Compensation will be $225,000, raises same as non-reps in a subsequent fiscal years. Full-time and full-year position, 15 sick days cumulative to 200. Standard sick leave buyback, non-union sick bank, extended illness leave, bereavement and other customary leaves of absences, 3 personal days, 25 vacation days with buyback of unused days, annuity, deferred compensation plan, 3%, termination for good cause or termination by deputy superintendent within 90 days notice. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Millian?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
In pursuant to action taken in executive session, it was moved to execute the contract of Dr. Marie Morse as an assistant superintendent, teaching and learning for a period of commencement of July 21st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Extensions of a 1 year of July 1st of each year unless the school committee exercises the right to extend, not to extend, sorry. Compensation of $198,000, $750, and raises same as non-reps in a subsequent fiscal years. Full-time and full-year position, 15 sick days cumulative to 200. Standard sick leave buyback, non-union sick bank, extended illness leave, bereavement and other customary leaves of absences, 3 personal days, 25 vacation days with buyback of unused days, annuity, deferred compensation plan, 3%, termination for good cause or termination by assistant superintendent within 90 days. That doesn't read right. Or termination by superintendent within 90 days notice. It does say assistant here for some reason. Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Millian?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, sorry. Motion to adjourn? Roll call.
Member Clancy?
Yes.
Member Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Member Kamara?
Yes.
Member Millian?
Yes.
Member McCullough?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
And do we